welcome to Breaking It All Down. I'm Count Zero. Well, I spent my Labor Day weekend at an anime convention, and that felt me feeling the urge to review an anime. So, let's take a look at an anime series that wrapped up last year, Rage of Bahamut Genesis. First off, this is a show that, by all rights, should suck. Rage of Bahamut Genesis is a show based on a fairly non-interactive cell phone card game from Japan. If you haven't played this game, but you've played Marvel War of Heroes or WWE Supercard, then you've basically played this game. Aside from the art on the character cards, the game itself is fairly dull. It's also, however, made loads of cash. Scrooge and his money bin levels of cash. So, when the time came to make this show, the owners of the rights to the game did the right thing. They backed the money truck up to Studio Mappa, one of the animation studios that were formed out of Studio Madhouse, and then walked away and let them make the show how they felt it would work. And I'd say they chose wisely. You can see every yen of their budget on the screen. Heavy movement scenes like fights and dances, even, are incredibly fluid, looking like they'd fit in better in a feature film than on a television show. The show itself is also scored like films and live-action television are scored, in that it is scored. By way of explanation, with American TV shows and British TV shows as well, when a piece of music is used in a dramatic moment in the show, that piece was written specifically for that dramatic moment in particular. The composer is able to watch the episode in advance and read the script and write the music for that episode and compose it with an orchestra watching it so they can make sure they have the pace right and that sort of thing. For anime, instead what happens is a series of significant themes are written for characters and action scenes, along with an image song or other dramatic music piece to be used at the show's climax. These pieces are dropped in as needed for the music requirements of the show. Due to the fast turnaround time for most anime, with episodes in some cases being finished the day before broadcast, it makes sense given these limitations. Rage of Bahamut Genesis works its way around those limitations basically by having enough money to have significant lead time and being able to hire a full orchestra on a relatively limited notice, and thus is able to put a musical score together that I have been desperately trying to hunt down on CD, both for my own personal listening and to donate a copy to my local classical music station. So, what about the show? Well, it follows a sort of quartet of main leads. There's Favreau Leon, rapscallion and general knave. There's Kaisar Lidfald, a childhood friend turned rival of Favreau due to his belief that Favreau's father caused Kaisar's father's death and Kaisar's own disgrace, and he's something of a stick-up-the-butt, lawful jerk paladin type. And then there's Amira, a mysterious demon girl who has stolen one of the keys to unseal the dark god Bahamut in order to free her mother. She is generally naive, honest, and forthright, which causes problems with all the people coming after her. You see, Bahamut was sealed in a massive war, with Bahamut on one side and the combined forces of Heaven and Hell on the other. Now Heaven and Hell are in something of a cold war, with the generals of Hell also scheming and manipulating each other for their own personal gain. Amira and her possession of this key can shift the balance of power in all of these struggles, both major and minor. One last character I can't forget, though, is Rita. Rita is a necromancer who turned herself into what is basically a lich when she died as a child. She is now several hundred years old and serves as the grumpy old advisor for the characters. This gives the series a tone that I'd compare to the middle to late portion of seasons of the show The Slayers. There's plenty of hilarious windy banter and discussion, and even some slapstick between the characters, as Kaisar and Favreau literally and figuratively bounce off each other. Amira looks on kind of confused, and Rita has precisely none of their crap. There are additional characters outside of these, and I can't get into them too much without getting into spoilers. I will say, though, that in spite of the rather epic scope of the show, the number of supporting characters are kept at a reasonable level, and they never really overwhelm our leads. I had no problem keeping track of who was who and whose side they were on, and with the show's cast being about 3 leads who are in about 90% of the show, 3 more major supporting characters, including Rita, who are in about 75%, and another 10 who are in about half to a quarter of the show, depending. If you could accuse the show of cutting corners anywhere, it's in the size of the cast. Not the quality of the cast, but the size of the cast. And this all together works wonderfully. The characters, between Amira's desire to free her mother, Kaisar and Favreau's desire to both help and do the right thing, while also having their own rivalry between themselves, each other, do a great job of making this a story that feels very driven by the characters, even when they themselves are manipulated by outside forces. As of this recording, the show has been licensed for streaming by Funimation and is currently available on their site and on Hulu. This is a show I cannot recommend enough, and it is my profound hope that this show gets a Blu-ray release, as I think it will benefit tremendously from being able to watch it in its full glory, without having to contend with ISP issues or bandwidth issues ruining the fun by buffering or anything like that, downgrading the quality. Next episode of Breaking It All Down is October, so you can expect something a little creepier then. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the show, please check out my Patreon and feel free to chip in a few bucks if you can spare them. Backers get mentioned in the credits at the $5 level, and at higher levels you can even pick topics for future episodes. And if you'd rather not do the monthly thing, there's also a tip jar linked to on my YouTube channel page that you can toss a few bucks into. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.